At least I hope you don't.
I don't.
If you have guests calling.
But the show takes precedence. I think that was a telemarketer.
Listen.
There you go. They can go bye-bye.
Listen, I'm not done. Lopez, it's not about you. I know we changed the camera and scooted it over so we can get the Mustafa in the picture, but if somebody wants to call in and talk, let them call and talk. We
love to hear from them. We love to hear from them.
Yes, we do. We love to hear from you guys. But like I said, the Instantgrits podcast, where did we come up with this? Everybody wants to be successful without putting in the work. Mm-hmm. And y'all know my spiel. We have a unique background, I feel. I think it's a privileged background as educators, black men. These two guys are husbands, fathers, basketball coaches, basketball trainers, business-minded musicians. We have a first-hand look of the lack of mental toughness and accountability and how it's hurting our kids and hurting our community and hurting our sports, how the lack of accountability and mental toughness is crippling. I think it's crippling. I don't want to use our self-awareness and personal development in this generation. And we see it every day. I work in a school right now with elementary school kids. So I'm seeing this stuff at a very, very early age, just like you guys are, because you have kids, but I don't. At 5, I'm seeing something like, this is getting crazy. The lack of I messed up, or the lack of accountability, or the lack of being able to have adversity hit you and how you respond to that. Mm-hmm. If you guys want to touch on that briefly, y'all can feel free. But like I said, accountability is missing, and everybody wants it now, like the nasty grits. Mm-hmm. The best ones are the slow turn joints.
Absolutely.
Right, 20 because you put in that work. 20 minutes, you said?
20 minutes.
20 minutes tops, right?
20 minutes tops.
I think too, man, that along with that accountability piece, it kind of goes hand in hand when you talk about specifically on the parenting side. I know, Lopez, you probably know what I'm talking about with this, is you because of the way today's society is, you see that lack of accountability when it comes to correction. So when it's time to, correct your child for something that they've done, because it's, we're in a society where you're supposed to question everything, and there's no undefined rules, and it's so much room to go outside of. I believe that children should be able to express themselves and think freely and things like that, but also there need to be boundaries, so you know how far not to go as well. If there's nothing there, then you don't know when I should stop. I don't know when I should. I'm going too far away, so I find myself in the middle of the street, and bam, here comes the car. So when taking it from a parenting perspective, it also translates over into young adulthood, as we see in the schools. When it comes time for correction, that's where you get that. To me, I think you get the one of the largest levels of resistance. Mm-hmm. With that whole thing in mind.
I agree.
You can touch on that. What do you see in your school, though?
Well, I definitely see the same thing. So I was even thinking about our use of the term Instantgrits, not just applying to our kids who have developed this mindset to want the easy things early, but also, with like Tim said, with the parents, they're not respecting the process of parenting. So when you have a child, when you decide to have a child, or you end up having a child, whichever the case may be, that is not just an 18-year commitment, it's a lifelong commitment.
Absolutely.
And the commitment means sacrifice on your end. So it's not just having another person around the house to do this or do that. It's sacrificing yourself as becoming a teacher of this child. Whether or not that child is going to do or go through what you went through, but being able to teach the child to be better than what you were.
Gotcha.
And avoid some of the pitfalls that you went through. And that happens inorganically and in moments all throughout their childhood, and a lot of parents more and more now are not taking those moments to not only correct their children, but to teach their children in those moments. So Instantgrits speaks to respecting the process in all facets of life.
Respect the process, yeah.
Yep.
So like I said, welcome. The one thing we do ask here, we don't charge for anything. We just ask you if it's possible to please refer a friend, leave a comment on any one of our platforms that we're on. Give us a 5-star review, and I'm asking for a 5-star. You ask. I don't want a 4. I don't want one. I want a 5-star, because if we can get a 5-star, that helps spread the word, and that helps grow us and helps us build up in our category, so we can influence and help more people.
That's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line. And like I said, we have a one-team mentality. Like, it's 3 of us, but we're all one. We're all one. We have a one-team mentality. The spark, I think, an accountability movement. So yes, this is a podcast, but it's actually a movement to reintroduce the respect of hard work and accountability. And everything starts with you, like my man says. If you have one dream or one wish, wouldn't be for world peace and all that type of stuff, it will be accountability. World peace is good, so don't knock me. Yeah. But it'll be accountability because we would all be able to use our gifts to do exactly what we're put here to do.
Awesome.
Without fear, without consequence, without shame, no compromise. Shout out to Master Builders Church. That's what we say at the end of it. But like I said, with that being said, thank you. We've done our accountability challenge. We're doing our water. We're doing our 50 push-ups and our morning affirmations. And yeah, so like I said, give us those 5-star reviews. That's good. Spread the word, and we'll get going. Today is Thursday's Child. Like my man Lopez came up with Instantgrits, which is an awesome name. My man Patton came up with the title rather of Thursday's Child. And what was the inspiration behind that, real quick?
So the inspiration behind that, in Philly, there's a news station who, NBC 10, they do Wednesday's Child. I think we already had something for Wednesdays, but I like that, highlighting the child and because that's our future, and that's where we need to spend a lot more time than we probably have been. But it also gives us an opportunity to touch on things in education that we come into contact with every day. So I was like, okay, well, we don't have anything for Thursday. Let's do Thursday's Child. And
so for Thursday's Child, we're going to also be talking about other broad things too. It's called Thursday's Child. We're talking about education, right. But a lot of stuff that we see in the education system,
right.
in school, we see how it overflows into the community. We see how it overflows into the mindsets of adults and kids alone, or together rather. So, like I said, today it was a sensitive subject, but it's not as sensitive. We're going to divert this because, first of all, the word toxic, I'm sick of hearing it. I think it's overused and I think it's played out. Mm-hmm. And the more things I see online, the more things I'm seeing that agrees with that mindset that we have. This word toxic, especially pertaining to toxic masculinity, I think it's played out. So I don't even want to really focus on that word too much or that phrase altogether because I can go in on that and I think we all can.
Sure.
But it stemmed from, I think some of it stemmed from a video that was released about 3 months ago. And I'll put this in a YouTube clip too so you only have some context. Mm-hmm. I call it the straw fight, not trying to be funny. Mm-hmm. But I believe it was a young African-American female who couldn't give a straw to a white male because it's a straw law, you know that, right? Like it's plastic, like there's no more straws.
Right.
And in the video, it shows him being the aggressor at first. He reached across the counter and grabbed her and pulled her towards him with the counter there. Immediately, once that happened, she started letting off right shots. Mm-hmm. Okay, she started letting these hands out. And believe it or not, I think that they said she had some type of background in training. Like she had some type of boxing background, but that's neither here nor there. Where toxic masculinity comes in, thank you for bearing with me, is there were men behind the counter. Mm-hmm. I'll say young men behind the counter. And I think, and please, I think women saw this and felt they weren't going to be as protected as they once thought they would be from the black community. The black males in the video, the young men, hesitated a little bit. She threw about 14 or 15 before a black male, one of the employees there, I think grabbed her. So I think that's where this whole toxic masculinity of where are our black men at? What are they doing right now? And to give you just a little bit more context, some people said that they should have grabbed the man instead. Now, I hate it when people make comments and say, this is what I would have done, blah, 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 because you never know what you're going to do until you're in that position where you've had experience, negative or positive, with that experience, because experience is experience, whether it's good or bad. But that's where this whole thing came from. This young woman was attacked, and the questions that I pose is, why didn't they jump in? But more so, how does Black Lives Matter influence the mindset of our males and what we're being taught? Because this whole Black Lives Matter with moms being scared of their sons, before this happened, my mom didn't want me to go anywhere, so that's fine, because I was in a bad neighborhood. But where does Black Lives Matter come in with maybe the influence of why they didn't jump in, love? Have you ever thought about that from that standpoint?
I think when I seen the video, I think what I thought of...
what did you think of first?
What I thought of first was definitely the fact that we're dealing with younger kids on the video. So the kids, the employees, for the most part, like they were teenagers or maybe early 20s.
Sure.
The other guys who were waiting in line to get food or just standing there, again, also struck me as younger kids. And of course, from our experience, we see a lot of the new response to violence or incidents, which is not only to not get involved, but to pull your phones out and record and become a professional
world
witness.
star,
right?
Instagram,
and that has become a
ignorant,
dangerous, dangerous fad and a dangerous symbol of ignorance when it comes to violence. Because before, like I know when I was younger, it was
that's not our first inclination to do though. Our first growing up, even you guys a little older than me, it wasn't for me to pull my phone out, yo.
No.
Well, there were no cell phones.
No, there was no cell phones first. But it was either one or the other. It was either get involved or don't get involved, right? So if it was none of your business, then you might back it up. It just depends on the situation. So
male on male fight.
Male on male fight. You don't get involved.
What about this girl here though?
Now in this situation here, now it might be a little bit different. Now it's hard for me to speak on it as an 18-year-old. If I witnessed that same event in 1996, what would I have done? But there was also some older folks that was there. And again, this one incident speaks to the mentalities, because not just this incident is isolated. There's also incidents happening around the country where you see people who would rather film, even adults, who would rather film than get involved. And that speaks to a mindset that we have as a community.
It's a new mindset.
It's a new mindset, right? That we're not going to get involved, but it becomes entertainment. Even dangerous situations where people are getting hurt.
That's glorifying it, isn't it? If I'm not jumping in and doing something, but I pull my phone out, that's not helping at all. If anything, it's not perpetuating.
That is perpetuating.
The negative footage, the disrespect of black on black crime.
Right.
That perpetuates them thinking that black on black crime happens more than white on white crime.
Yeah.
Where does race come into this thing? Because now that I'm thinking about it, why are you saying that?
You said where does race come in?
Yeah. Like we were once raised to stand up and fight for stuff. Now, because of the color of our skin now, is not necessarily civil. Ooh, I'm not going to say that. It kind of is now.
Right.
But going back to the word I didn't want to use, toxic masculinity. How can we further tell our sisters that it's not over with, that they can be protected after they've watched this? After we've seen boys who claim they're tough not get involved. After we've seen moms and, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think too.
It's an interesting topic, and it's kind of broad, and I'm sorry I'm going all over the place.
No,
I'm just
passionate
really
about it. But I think to go to kind of streamline it and stay where Dave was is
gotta protect yourself.
That younger, like the younger generation, and I don't know if it's.
We don't teach our kids to fight.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I'm not going
to get back because of cops.
I don't want to necessarily blame parenting. Has a lot to do with it. Also, that social media component, man, is a monster. So I think I mean, like you said, instead of going into some type of action for us, if we were too young, you may not get involved, but you may still tell somebody, like, listen, hey, it's a guy, hey, so you might want to get somebody, something going on or whatever. But now the culture that it is now, that this happens, the first inclination is to grab a phone and go live on Instagram or go on Snapchat and whatever and laugh, not jump into action. So, or I think the younger generation wouldn't get involved to the point where they would grab the guy. I think it would be pretty consistent to them not getting involved at all or taping it and then posting it later.
If they grabbed the guy instead of the girl in this video, do you think they would have faced charges from the police?
Yes.
I think the potential is there. Yeah, definitely.
If this young lady was white instead of black, how would this have changed the whole scenario?
So the bystanders were white and the man was black and the girl was white.
Yes, and he grabbed her.
I think definitely. I don't know if they would have got involved physically, but I think definitely more calls would have been made to somebody to help the situation.
The police would have been there instantly.
Right.
Here's what I want to pose, and it's just hopped in my head. I'm sorry. The male was black. The female was white. Mm-hmm. Would the black males pull the white girl that they worked with, or would they go around the corner and pull the black man off of the white girl?
I don't think they would touch the black guy.
I don't either.
Ooh, you don't think so?
No.
I don't think so.
Because I think there's more of a concern with. It's a perception thing, so I think there's more of a concern for a response from us. So, especially depending on the size of the guy. So if a guy a fair size walks in and gets into a physical confrontation with a male or a female, and there's other spectators around, I think there's more people that would be more concerned about his response than if that guy was white.
Right.
So I think that speaks to the preconceived notion that we are violent anyway.
By nature, yeah.
By nature. So therefore, a lot of people will be less likely or less brave to want to be involved with somebody who might definitely lash back.
It would come as a shock if it were not a black male show. That would probably be the first thing. Like,
Yeah.
they'd be like, oh my God. But we walk in the door with a mean face and you already anticipating that something like that is going to happen. So.
That's a little foreshadowing. We're going to get back to that.
Okay.
But as kids, excuse me, not as kids. Oh, you guys are kids to me.
This guy.
No, that's a little too much.
No, it's fine.
No, but for real, you guys have kids.
Mm-hmm.
So you have 4 boys, and I know you have
5 girls.
5 girls. This is a wild dynamic. But what I want to know is really, how would you raise your boys to navigate some of these things that they're going to witness, and not just witness, where they might need to step in, because a female might be getting jumped or might be getting treated poorly, just even called a name. When are you teaching your boys to say, yo, that's not right, and for them to do something?
Absolutely.
Are you teaching them to stand back and navigate and choose when and when not to? This is kind of hard now, because I know moms are teaching our boys to put your hands up. We got a process with how we interact with the cops. There's a process how we interact with a gun. Is there a process with how we teaching our young black boys to handle situations like this to protect our females? Because apparently, whether we like it or not, it's appearing on social media that we're not being there for them as much as they would have wanted us to be, like in the past.
Yeah, I'll say with my sons, I'm just teaching them morally what's right anyway.
Right.
It's not even specific to one scenario or another. They see the way that I treat their mother, I treat their grandmothers, their aunts. So my interactions with the women in their life and how I treat them is the first step to me. How they see me respond to women in the community is the first step. If we all witness something, if we're driving somewhere, we all witness something, I'll use that as a teachable moment to say, listen, that's not right. Or they have it, especially, how Tim Jr. is. My oldest son is probably going to wind up being a lawyer or fighting for world peace or something, but he has that type of heart where he sees stuff that's wrong and he'll ask a question, naturally. He's inquisitive. So, Dad, why is that? That's not right. He knows it's not right automatically. Why is he doing that to her? So the moral compass is there, even at this age. Now, the challenge for me in today's society, like I just a quote that popped up in my head, I saw it on Facebook, is something in regards to you can't be upset with your parents because they raised you for a world that no longer exists. And so with me teaching, my sons, I can't prepare them the same way, my mother and my father did me, because it's a different time frame, it's a different world out here now.
Right.
So me saying to them, if you see something wrong, you go in there and you beat the guy up.
That's not in everybody.
That's right, but I don't think it's more important for them to be the hero as to try to help stop the situation within what they can influence. So it may not be that I go beat this guy up, but it may be that I pull out my phone and I record it, but I call the police and say, listen, this is what happened. This guy, if he says he didn't do it, I got it here on video. Like, do what's morally right. If you're not going to step in and become physically combative, then that goes for everybody.
But you're using this with your kids, though.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I would use with my kids, because we know how slippery the slope is and how it can turn real fast. My sons, I'm not, really a small guy. I don't think that they're going to be, small. They may be rather large black men. So right away, them coming on the scene to do something, automatically they're a threat or they're intimidating or whatever. So with that being the stigma already out there, I don't want them to even further push the envelope and then have something happen to them. But it's all about teaching, and it comes back to parenting. I'm not going to put it solely on there because it's difficult being a parent in today's society. You have to protect your children from so much more, monitor so much more than our parents had to do for us. So there's plenty more opportunities for wrong logic and twisted doctrine to kind of, even in the cartoons that they watch, like.
Right.
The stuff that's on TV now is like, you gotta even question it, like, wait a minute, what you doing watching this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's difficult, but teaching them and fostering a moral compass in them to go into action, maybe not so much to be physical, but do something. You see something wrong, you do something about it, you say something.
And what's great about what you just said was moral compass. That word didn't even cross my mind. But like I said, I don't have kids, so that's why I'm really leaning on YouTube, because you just gave me that perspective. But now I want to know what it's like from Lopez's, because like I said, I use the word extreme dynamics here,
Right.
Yeah.
because of you have 4 boys.
Right.
Lopez, you have 5 girls.
Yeah.
Right. And this goes back to
So how does a man teach his daughters to prepare for the struggles that they're going to face? Because they might even have more struggles or a different set of struggles than a black man has.
Sure.
Right. Right.
How do you? What moral compasses do you try to implement and instill there? Like, how does that work?
Well, one is I try to look at it from a perspective that I'm teaching my girls not only to be ready for the world, but to be ready for men, right? So it's
You teach them to be ready.
I teach them to be ready for men because the idea of being in a relationship with a man, choosing the right man, having your own standards, setting your lines, that's something that's very important. Also, with being prepared for this world as it is, right? And so that's why I said at the very beginning about parenting, like it's a thankless job, but it's a job that takes tremendous effort. You have to be in every nook and cranny of your kid's life to make sure that they're prepared, because once they go out into the world, they're making their own decisions, and so there's no more influence after that. So those conversations that you have from the very beginning about life and about what to expect from the world, and how to, I'm gonna add another turn to what Tim was saying, appropriate action, right? I want my kids to always take action when necessary, but I want it to be appropriate, right? So when I was raised with 2 brothers and a younger sister, and my dad and my stepdad both said the same thing. If you go outside and something happens to your brother, the same thing better happen to you. So that was the mindset of, if your brother gets into a fight, you better get into a fight, right? You can't do that nowadays because the kids are playing differently. So I can't I wouldn't direct my daughters that anyway, but I can't give my daughters that same advice because the world's changed. Like Tim said, and if you're a parent who's not changing with the world with your understanding and just being in your own ways and say, well, this is how I was raised, so I'm gonna pass it on, you're not preparing your kid for the world as it is. So I think that with us being involved in education and having a footprint on today's generation, because we talk to them and we're interacting with them every day, we stay grounded with what's going on and how they're thinking and what changes are being made within this group, so therefore we can instruct our kids in these same situations. So we're telling our daughters, our sons, a lot of that foundational stuff that's going to help them when they get in those situations. So you may not instruct them and say, here son or here daughter, when you go into a restaurant and you see this happening, this is what I want you to do, but you're giving them the ground principles to say, listen, you're
not teaching them to be fearful.
No, you're not to be fearful. To take appropriate action.
Like that a little bit though.
To take from me?
No, not just for you in generalities, which I'm speaking.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it is. If you don't know what's going on or you're not aware, then you will teach your kids to be fearful, because this world makes you do that.
Fearful versus cautious, or
fearful, because you'll tell a mother will tell her sons all the things that make them afraid of this world, because they're afraid of this world, instead of teaching them to be cautious.
Right.
You're going to have to be out here, son. You're going to have to be out here, daughter. But these are the things that can potentially happen in this world. These are the things I want you to be prepared for. So when they come, you can make an informed decision, and you don't have to be afraid.
Perfect.
You don't have to be afraid. You face it and you make your decision, and then you come to your parents for support, right? Because we'll always be here even after you leave the house.
You just said come to your parents for support.
Yeah.
But we know, based off the generations that we're in now, right? There's a lack of a 2-person household. That Trinity, as I like to use the word, the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, or even the Father, the child, and the Holy Spirit being the mother, the nurturer. That Trinity is lacking. And when we talk about the whole baby boomers, like my aunt, she's a baby boomer. She's in her 60s. She looks 40. Shout out to my aunt. She said that's what they grew up with. So they grew up with that two-parent household, the man did all this work, the mom was doing this.
Yeah.
That's lacking now. So when they turn to somebody, are they really getting the full scope of what it truly means about caution versus fear? Because that's a mindset. When I hear fear,
Right. Sure.
I think of taking a step back.
Sure.
When I hear cautious, I think of what? Taking a step forward with a different approach.
True.
You know what I mean? So that's why I just stopped you right there, because you said parents.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not getting that. So what's the difference now between the baby boomer generation that had two people saying exactly what you just said versus now in the majority of the males in our community and females
Yeah.
getting a one-sided.
I mean,
It's not necessarily wrong. It's not
Right.
wrong. But
Right.
it is a bit one-sided, right?
Right.
Well, anytime you have, I mean, you take something as simple as a simple scale.
Mm-hmm.
If it's one side is out of balance.
Life's about balance, right?
So, you know, no slight to any single mother. For the majority of my
no
life,
slice at all.
my mom was a single mom, and I think she did a fantastic job, if I do say so myself.
Mm-hmm.
But there are certain things that I probably wouldn't had to have experienced, or I would have understood a lot quicker had there been adequate balance in my household. Because there are certain things as being a young man, you know, my mom, God bless her, but she just couldn't teach me. She just couldn't prepare me for it.
Same thing for vice versa, right?
Sure.
Some things
And
you
it's-
can't teach.
Absolutely,
You know?
and it's the same thing. But I think back to your point is, you know, and without getting off topic, because we can go in a
Feel free
totally
to go.
different
I want to hear this because, like I said, I'm learning from you guys.
But
right
there has been historically, because you know we always got to bring history into it, because history leaves clues. Historically, there's been a systematic agenda to. I mean, I'll just say it. You hear it a ton of times, but to cripple the black family, which was probably the strongest entity in those times that you're talking about, the baby boomer generation. I mean, we saw it with, you know, during the civil rights movement and the Black Panther Party and the things that those guys were doing. And so, you know, it's no secret. It's out there. If you look at what the government really kind of focused on, unfortunately, during those times, it was to kind of cripple the black community. So it started with the industrial jobs moving away and being outsourced overseas. And so that left the black family without adequate means to survive. And so it made the men had to go to, fight a war. They had to, spend longer hours away from home. And, if that balance is out of the home, then you automatically create an imbalance.
Yeah.
And then, you go into the next decade after the war and all the jobs going away, into the 80s with the drugs and men being strung out and, or coming back from the war with PTSD and drinking and becoming alcoholics or, killing themselves and things like that. So it was a systematic approach. And then, of course, you get to the 90s where you hit the drug game real hard and the mass incarceration starts to come up on the scene. So it's been a systematic approach for a systematic agenda, for a long time to kind of cripple the black family and kind of pull things out of balance. And I'm sorry, you take it another decade. At the beginning of the millennium, it was the whole, shout out to Beyonce with that whole independent woman movement. I don't need a man for anything, and I can, do this on my own. That's great for women empowerment. I'm all for that. But at the same time, it shouldn't be at the expense of balance with having a male, be able to do this thing together and raise the children the right way. So that's been what's been out there kind of, historically. So it's very difficult to kind of navigate around that. Some of us have been blessed to have two-parent households. Some of us, that wasn't the case. We've been blessed to have either mothers or fathers that raised us. But I do think as one who's in a two-parent household now raising my children, there is a large difference between my son's friends who are being raised by single moms. Not that my kids are any better or they behave any better, but they just understand things a little bit differently. Okay. And their interactions, you see it, their interactions are a lot different than
and
those in the single home.
This is great because, like I said, you go to a different approach. He has 4 boys at home.
Mm-hmm.
So even though you guys may share the same mindset, your exposure to something is different than what you were exposed to going home with 5 or even 6. 6 women, or 6 girls, or 6 women, we'll say 6 women, that's fine,
Right.
that you're going home to, how does that play into this whole parenting thing? Because like I said, you sparked this. You just think when you said parent, that just snapped because people aren't having that at home.
Right. And it's definitely unfortunate. It's definitely unfortunate because, like Tim said, this has been a systematic thing that's spanned hundreds of years to get us to this point, where the masculine principle is no longer in the house. The feminine principle, who's the first and most important messenger to the child, is now being able to be vulnerable because there's no protection. There's no protecting mechanism for her, and now the children end up being the most affected. So that's what the system was all about, to keep this in disarray like it is. So for me, being in the house of women, my understanding of our history in general anyway is that our women have always been empowered. They've always been empowered, actually above the man.
True.
Their stance in the home was to allow the man to lead and be the provider and the hunter and the gatherer, the warrior, all that kind of thing like that. But the woman was always the most important piece of the puzzle when it come to family. So in my household, it's the same thing. The mother, my wife, is held up in the highest regard in the house, and that's what the messaging is to all my daughters, is that this is how a man is supposed to treat his woman. This is how a woman is supposed to function within the home. And in turn, my wife does most of the messaging towards my daughters, and what I provide is the male perspective on whatever it is we're discussing or whatever it is we're covering. Both how it affects them and also how the males in their age range think. So trying to give them that perspective, because I was a young man.
Sure.
And so I can tell my girls when they get to the age of dating, what the young men are thinking, and I'm interacting with those boys every day at work. Sure. So I'm giving them that feedback from the male perspective, which may be received differently. So they'll get it from their mom and receive it one way, and then they'll get it from me and receive it another way. And the hope is that they get a well-rounded picture of whatever the issue is that we're talking about, or the concerns that we're talking about, as they move into what they're doing. So. But for me, it starts with the empowerment of them individually, their confidence, their self-worth, and all those things like that, to build off of whatever else they're doing as they grow up.
That's interesting, because now it's making me think now, is that role different for you? As somebody that has 4 boys, he said that what he shared with his household is, and I'm pretty sure some of these are generalities and certain things need to be in every household, right? But people gear towards different things based off of their upbringing and how they want their households to be raised. Is your household different because you have boys? About how you approach your role as their
right. We have similar roles, but because of the opposites in gender, there have to be different approaches. Right. So it's similar in my home with. My wife being held in the highest regard. They see how mommy can do no wrong. Daddy can, mommy can't, and that's actually okay with me. Because me making a mistake, and me doing this and me doing that. I'd rather them see me through that, and then have them revere their mother, so that God forbid if anything happens to me, they know, okay, I need to take care of mommy because that's what daddy always did. That's the message that I'm trying to send them. In regards to where the messaging comes from, like Dame said, that would be, I'd take over the messaging because I'm the one that's modeling for them. So yeah, mom does the nurturing and the cushioning at times, which she likes to try to do, but doesn't really work. But
cushioning, what's that?
Yeah, cushioning. Yeah, when it's time for me to crack the whip, oh well, you, because she doesn't want to see her babies get. But hey, listen, they're young men, they got to catch it.
Good word choice.
Anyway,
just like Lopez said, scrumptious. Don't forget, I didn't forget about that. He said scrumptious. I've never heard nobody say that and really mean it. But that lets you know. Stop doing some other stuff.
Scrumptious.
See, what is that? What are you doing? Scrumptious. One more time.
Scrumptious.
You can't say that 3 times.
Scrumptious.
You can't. I can't even say it once.
That's all right there.
That's Will Ferrell. I'm not go take credit for that.
But you say she tries to.
No, I mean, but yeah, it's just
Sure,
I mean,
that's
that's
natural.
natural. That's natural for a mom to do, being a nurturer. But again, is that balance, because I have to explain to her, like, no, you want to do this because when they get to this age, you'll see this if you keep cushioning that. And it's like, okay, you know what? Okay, I see what you're saying. So now we okay, and I understand that's going to happen naturally.
And you know exactly where I want to go. We're not going to go there yet, but we know how this is not being implemented I'm not going to say at all in the schools.
Oh, no.
I'm not going to go there yet.
No,
I'm not. That's going to be probably another couple episodes.
Right.
But, and people, I really believe our schools are doing their best. But
Which is why all three of us have gray hair.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I don't have none anymore.
I was joking.
You're smoothed out. He got the.
I cut my 2 strands out.
I used to do that, but I said I'm just going to embrace it.
I shave my head now. I've been doing it for a while though. But with that being said, y'all brought up mass incarceration and systemic agendas behind this whole prison system.
Sure.
How do you think that plays? Like, do you really think the prison rates?
You kidding me?
No, I'm gonna
let me take it back.
Let's take it back.
Tim gave us a good history lesson. Let me just take it farther back.
Now, is it more now than before, or is it just more exposure?
It's not. It's the same agenda, right?
True.
But like anything else, you can't keep doing the same thing to a person before they catch on.
Right.
A person of some kind of intelligence, which we are. So you can't just keep doing it the same way. So the agenda is about control and keeping one group in a certain spot over or under another group.
True.
So if you go all the way back in our history, our deepest history, like I said, the woman was revered as in high regard. The man was always looked at as a masculine principle. There was a definition, a visible definition of what a woman was, what a man was, and how they functioned together. So as kids grew up, they understood what their role was within the society. Fast forward when we came here, in order to break that, thousands and thousands of years of tradition and understanding, you had to take away the masculine principle. So you had those instances where you had the biggest, baddest black guy tied to horses and drug in 5 different ways and pulled apart in front of his children, in front of his woman, in front of the rest of the people around there, in order to, take him down a notch and bring make all the guys fearful. And make all the women fearful for their sons. So then in turn, what happens is the woman doesn't become dependent on the man because she says, "You can't protect me because look what they're doing to you."
Protect yourself. Yeah.
The woman tells her son, "I need you to be softer. I need you to be obedient because I don't want to lose you. I don't want you killed or sold off."
Right.
And they tell their daughter, "You have to be independent. You cannot depend on a man because they can't protect you. So do what you got to do." Right. And again, I said,
is that current or is that?
This is back then. So, like I said, the woman.
You're saying this goes all the way back then.
All the way back then. So the woman is the most important messenger to the child, and by taking away the masculine principle, you change the message of the woman to the children. And this goes all through slavery, right? And then we get out of slavery, and we're working our way through that, through civil rights and all that kind of stuff like that. The messaging never changes. The tactics to keep the masculine principle does. So no longer can you keep us as slaves. But then you take us through Jim Crow, and you take us through Reconstruction and civil rights, and you attack us different ways there. And then you introduce drugs into the black community, and then you penalize drugs and drug dealing and things like that through the black community. Well, you had lynching before that, but then you had drugs come in.
So that history is still being implemented against our millennials right now.
Sure. So in our era, when we were younger, you had the 3 strikes bills, and you had the drug laws that put black men in jail in droves.
Disproportionate.
Right now, because the laws are changing in regards to drugs, you're having weed being legalized, you're having different opiates are becoming more popular. Now they're trying to find different ways to keep that masculine principle out the home. And now it's getting to the extreme point where we're now being dehumanized and hunted, as Tim said earlier. And because we're being dehumanized, as were the Jews, when things happen to us, nobody jumps at arms, not even our own. We don't jump in arms. We just internalize it as another misfortune, an accident, and we uprise a little bit, and then we move on.
Yeah, and just to your point too, the role of the media in this too is something that needs to be talked about more, because we're more likely to believe what it is we see. Or also to become desensitized to what we see. If you see it enough, it's like, okay, it's another, like, if you guys can kind of remember when when the onslaught was on. I mean, it's still on, but at the very beginning of it, talking about like the Black Lives Matter and all of that, when you had like Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, like when it really hit,
people.
It was
hearing those voices in those videos was crazy.
Yeah, man, and it was, everything was outrageous. Philando Castillo, all of those guys that were getting murdered by the police. You fast forward 3 or 4 years later, to some level, not that you're not still outraged, but to some level, it's like, oh man, it happened again. It happened again. So people become desensitized to it. So with that, you get, just basic off of human error and human consciousness is like, okay, the outrage becomes less and less. Is okay, well, we being hunted, and then it turns to.
It's perfect because.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you just got me thinking now. Is it every 10 or 15 or 20 years there's going to be something different to try to dehumanize the black male? First it was what you just shared from a historical reference. Then it became drugs, and then it became maybe us robbing people, and then us utilizing guns and having that negative stereotype. What's the new black stereotype for the black community? Is there one for us black males that's being created with us being timid and fearful now?
Oh man, I can't go where I want to go.
You can't go where you want to go. This is the
Instant
spot.
I think it's actually going backwards a little bit. Where, like I said, the idea of dehumanizing us so it doesn't matter.
What's the new stereotype in the black community?
Is that we're not, like I said, we're less than human, so it doesn't even matter. That's going backwards. So it's not even giving us the idea of being a man. Like if I'm driving the car and I get pulled over and stopped, and it ends up leading to me being shot unjustly.
That was a threat.
That's a death of a human being, a man.
Yeah.
That's a tragic thing. It should be treated as such.
You know, my microphone.
Should be treated as such by any individual witnesses and of course the justice system, but it doesn't, because everybody's okay with it just being, well, it's like a dog getting hit by a car. It'll get cleaned up.
It's still like that.
It'll get cleaned. It's going back to that. Yeah. It'll get cleaned up, but there's no hoopla. There's not people out, lighting candles or none of that. It's just it happened. It'll get cleaned up, and then you move on. Traffic will continue. So,
how is it going to get better? You said it's going back like that.
I think it's going back to the mindset, because if you look at the flip side, even the reaction by the other group, the people of European descent, they're getting more bold in what they're doing. Now you see it right now with how they talk. You see more instances where you see videos being released of people using the N-word, confronting people, being more verbal and vocal. You got Trump in office, saying the stuff that he's saying. The next thing that's going to happen is like I said, it's going backwards. The violence starts getting worse. So now we see
the alt-right right now. The alt-right movement, you know what I mean?
Yes. So where we seen videos of police dogs getting sicked on black people and getting hit with batons, and we seen it as videos, like we haven't experienced it. If nothing changes, we're on the trajectory where that comes back.
You said something real interesting, because you said you mentioned the politics, but you also mentioned what I would call the grassroots of this new mindset or boldness certain Caucasians have now, that are all part of that, you know what I mean, that more aggressive movement of feeling more comfortable saying racial slurs. Where is that on the black end, where we have a grassroots effort of black men and black women saying, actually, you know what? Nah, I'm gonna bounce back now. Because where was our boldness? Did we have that boldness when Barack Obama was in office?
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I would say that we did. I think
because people getting bold. He's right.
Yeah, I think again.
I didn't want to bring up politics, Pat. No.
It
ties in though. It ties in.
It all ties in, because again, I keep going back to this point because it's so very true. The media, whether it's social media, whether it's TV, whether it's news publication, the media has an ability to pretty much control and alter the way we view a certain event by the number of times it's reported, by how often it's reported, by what they say.
Pause.
We take it as fact sometimes.
You gotta get in the video, man. Like, if I'm sorry, we're shooting a video too.
I'm sorry.
Pat getting so in depth with the joint.
Because he getting me. Okay, here we go.
Putting his arms all up my elbows.
I think, in talking about the politics and everything of it,
Which is a whole other discussion.
Right.
Jesus
like
Christ.
we knew even when Barack Obama was in office, you had people that, would say certain things, and you had even certain newscasters who wouldn't refer to him as President Obama. They would just say Obama or Mr. Obama, kind of being disrespectful in that regard. I've yet to hear, I'm sure it's been done maybe by Don Lemon or somebody like that, but I've yet to hear, even though it sounds small, somebody say Trump. They always say President Trump.
Okay.
So even
I'm
with
sure
all
people
of
are doing it on a grassroots level. I'm just going to.
I'm sure they are.
Ignorance.
Right.
I might not.
No. I'm sure they are.
I'm
But
sending this out to everybody.
what I'm saying is, I
Educate
think
me.
right. What I'm saying is, I think that when Obama was in office, it was, of course, it was always there, but by him being in office and kind of challenging that whole status quo, I'll say it didn't give black people necessarily the sense of, okay, we've arrived, we made it, racism is over, he's our hero, yeah, we win. But it gave us something to be proud of, which we hadn't had in a long time. And so that pride kind of thwarted, because you're not going to talk about my president. It was kind of like that's what we had. But, with this guy getting in office, it's with him being in office and saying the things that he's saying, it's like the closet backwoods races are all coming out like, yeah, now we got somebody for
That's
us
why I
to
use
say
the
what we
word.
want to say.
I use the word grassroots. But
Yeah, I got you. I got where you at, and that's unfortunate, because that again, that is the sad part is, and it's funny that we on Thursday Child, because that behavior is taught. That hatred, that for nothing else but a slight altering in pigmentation, you hate another human being. That's taught.
It's deeper than that, though.
Oh, it's way deeper than that. I didn't know how much time we had to
Yeah.
go to it, but
Because
it's way deeper than that.
Let's go ahead.
That definitely stems from a fear of genetic annihilation.
Sure.
That's where it stems from.
You know, Stephen A. Smith right there.
A fear of genetic annihilation, right?
Yeah.
And the crazy part is that not all of them are even aware of that's the agenda.
Exactly.
Go
They
into
just
that
participate.
Go into that a little bit more.
So the idea
elaborate,
of
'cause I'm
genetic
pretty sure.
annihilation,
I'm
yeah.
familiar with it, but
Okay. So the idea of
Everybody
genetic
might not.
annihilation is the idea that if the world was what it was supposed to be, where everybody cared and loved and respected each other as human beings and individuals, and therefore everybody lived together and loved together and intermingled together and had kids together, then eventually every person on this planet would have color, as we was in the beginning.
Right.
So if you're of a particular group and you're fearful of that happening, then you have to put things in place to ensure the survival of your genetic code,
okay.
right? Which is what this stems down to. But it doesn't mean that everybody's on board with it. It doesn't mean that everybody's even aware of it. People act out what they, like you said, what they learn.
Sure.
Because they learned it, not even understanding like where it comes from or what it means or anything like that, or not even caring about that. They just want to be part of something. But the deeper thing is that if things aren't how they are, then in 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, what will be the genetic code of the planet?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the fear.
Now, you did say something about reverting back.
Mm-hmm.
What did you say? You said you think that the black male and the things that are happening to him on a systematic level is going to be is retrogressing. It's going to revert
It's
back.
turning up, right?
So if it's turning up, will the baby boomer mindset? Because if it's going to be so one-sided with the black people being...
Yeah, I know where you're going.
Is it a possibility that more people are going to start to take a stand and be like, no? Is it going to be more grassroots? Is it going to be more couple of families really trying to work on some things, get therapy, try to build their household up so that we can balance it out a little bit more? Will that take place, you think?
I believe so, and I certainly hope so.
And you know what I mean? I know that wasn't as eloquent, but it just popped in my head.
No,
You said
It
revert
definitely
back,
would have
so-
to. It would have to.
Yeah.
So if you look at those times where our country was at, so aside from slavery, I think our country was worse during that time. But once we got out of slavery and we were at our time where the violence was at all-time high, lynchings were high, just violence period was high. Like you said, those were the times where you had two parents in the home, right? Dads were around because there was a need to protect your family, right? There was a need to protect your family, and therefore the response ultimately became meet violence with violence.
But now it's not a need to protect the family. We need to figure out how we're going to protect the black male. There's always a need to protect family, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm not minimizing it. But as of right now, how are we going to protect our black men? And that's a whole nother different question.
I'm gonna touch on that one too, but something that you just said clicked in my head in terms of reverting back. You 100% right on reverting back, and you also 100% right that the mechanisms for how the systematic agenda being carried out change, because I feel to some degree, and I'll pose the question to you guys, that the police killings are the new age lynchings.
Yes, I agree.
The police killings, meaning the police killing our people?
Yes.
They're the new version.
Particularly, right. Yeah. Because if you think about what lynchings were, it yes, about control, about fear, but it was also a public display. I want to show you what I'm going to do to you if there's
where
this.
the word picnic came from?
It is.
Definitely.
Get into that. Yeah. Get into that too. And so with now the mechanism of social media, TV is it's almost like it's not going to be said on TV. Maybe somebody will catch it, but the feeling of it is I want you to put this on TV. I want you to see what we're gonna do to you if you just being peaceful.
Right.
Like, all of the killings were terrible. The one that really hit me the hardest, because it's like I just can't forget this one, is the Philando Castile. Like, he's sitting in a passenger seat
and did nothing
with his kid right behind him, did nothing but reach for his ID so he could show identification, and he was shot and killed right in front of his child for.
Yeah. But what's crazy about that, man, we have our kids talking to us about the whole Nipsey thing. Our kids some of the kids that we talk to have grown up and seen that too.
Sure.
That's going to imprint.
Sure. Oh, man.
These are imprints
and you know what? That's it. And talking about that, and especially talking to my young people here at the high school, sure, it's trauma. They showed the entire thing on Facebook. It went live, which I understand what his girlfriend at the time, I understand what she was doing.
Even choking them out, I can't breathe.
Right, Eric Garner, yeah. Absolutely.
That would mess me up. I showed that to my kids when we was going over some black kids. That still messes me up now. We're watching, witnessing a murder.
All of them.
And just think, when you say that.
Sorry, Patton, use that.
No, it's cool.
Me and Lopez.
It's cool. Yeah, just Brody me. It's fine. I'm bigger than y'all, so we can jump it. It's like, okay.
But I mean, you're saying how that messed you up as a man watching that, right? So now imagine when they had this shooting down in Florida, the mass shooting, right?
Yeah.
For weeks, there was people in there, therapists, social workers, just talking to the kids because they said this is such a traumatic event for these kids. We got to make sure that they're okay, right? But nobody recognizes that every black male in this country who has a TV, phone, whatever mode of media, is suffering from trauma.
Absolutely.
It's suffering from trauma. And
they'll label us and say that we have special needs.
You can go that way. But also I'll say for the young people who I come in contact with, this for them justifies their mistrust and disrespect toward authority. Then it becomes all authority.
Right.
So it goes from being I just don't like the police to anybody who's in a position of authority trying to tell me what to do.
I don't like it.
No, I'm fighting back against it. Which will, ultimately we know further land them in situations where they're gonna have brushes with the law. So it's like there's no way you can get around this if you challenge authority, if you're saying something against it, you're gonna have a date with the law in some form or fashion. And then we get into the certain tags. Okay, he can't focus, he can't concentrate. Some of this is due to the trauma. Some of this is and you got to remember, what about the stuff that's not reported that these kids see in their neighborhood every single day? I just saw my buddy get shot up 3 times.
Being exposed to that does not mean you should be on meds.
Absolutely.
That would give anybody.
What
are we doing, bro?
Right. Correct.
That does not make sense.
Correct. Medication is not the key.
These boys do not need all this medication. If they really need medication, let's scan their brains first.
Right.
Let's see if there's a chemical imbalance. Let's see if one part of their brain is not getting as much.
True.
Is dormant. Let's see if it's not getting as. We talked about this, Lopez. I didn't want to go there, and I'm not going to go there.
Yeah.
But
Just touch it, Dev. Just touch it.
Don't
go
that's
there,
all I'm
but
saying.
just touch on
That's
it.
all I'm saying.
Just
Scan the
touch it.
brains
It's
of our
dangerous.
young boys and girls before you say, "Oh, they have a symptom.
Right.
Let's treat that symptom." No, they might just need to talk to somebody.
Right.
They might need to hear something from somebody else. They might not
By
need
and large,
medicine for the
that's
symptom.
magic.
Scan their brain
Right, that's it.
first,
Yep.
and it's kind of extreme. It might, but it's a scan.
No, and let me connect this,
Go
right?
ahead.
So what you're saying, from what you're saying to what Tim just said. So when the kids develop that natural affinity to oppose authority, right? So now they hate police, and then that transfers into I just hate authority, period.
Yeah.
It also pushes them away from the healthy authority. So for Tim and myself, who
Yes.
are authority, well, actually you too,
Oh,
who
yeah.
are all authority figures in our schools, right? We get kids who are fighting with us, not us as individuals,
Right.
but with our power and our authority because it affects them or they internalize it a certain type of way, but not understanding that we're the authority that's going to help them, that has their concern. So they lose out. So not only do they push themselves closer to the jail cell, they start beating the door to get into the jail cell, but they're also pushing themselves away from the healthy authority that can serve as a filler in that void where they may not have the masculine principle at home or in their lives.
Most
They're
of the
just-
kids I work with, Lopez, every day, they're screaming, no, 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 no when I come. And I actually spend the majority of my time not even addressing the problem that I was called for, but letting them know I'm here to help you. I know that there's two sides to every story,
Right.
but I also am here just to help you navigate certain things. Because, the teacher has a side of what she or he thinks happened. You have a side of what really happened. I'm here to help you, though. I'm not. Don't look at me and just scream no. I spend most of my time, Patton, and both of you guys can share y'all's parts real quick.
Yeah.
I spend most of my time telling them, listen, I'm here to help you. Stop running away from me.
Right.
Stop getting so upset when you see me.
Right.
You should have a different connotation, and that's what I'm just spending most of my time teaching. And
Real quick,
go
now
ahead.
back to your point. I will run away from what I'm not used to.
Exactly.
So if I'm not used to a male at home trying to help me navigate through issues, you scare me.
Right. I
Because
don't know how to internalize how I feel about
Right,
this.
exactly.
It just
It feels like I
weird.
want it, but
Yeah, it feels weird. I don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
and if I give into it, what does that make me?
Yeah, I spend most of my time doing that the entire day. It's not even really about what I was called in there for.
Right.
It's me sitting them down and be like, well, once I finally catch them or I talk to them, I'm here to help you. I've seen things and I can help you with certain things.
Yeah.
And it's, I'm sorry. That's
No.
just-
I mean, listen, it's a lot, and especially for us because we see this stuff day in and day out. For I mean,
They have a different
not
version
no
of
slight to
black
you, Dave, but
masculinity.
me, we'll see. And I'm going to touch on that. For you and I, Dave, is you go home to this too, because you got to be that pillar of strength for your children too. But see, like you're saying, can we really say that masculinity in our communities is undefined? Because if those kids know that and they shy away from it, is it that it's not defined?
Therefore,
Or-
go ahead, finish up.
Yeah, is it that it's not defined, or they right?
That's
or
right
they
here.
don't-
Therefore,
Exactly.
black masculinity was once defined. And I was using the term baby boomers, right?
Yeah.
They had that. It was defined. You knew the role and you knew it was a defined thing when you saw black masculinity. You could point to
Right.
that man.
Right.
You could point to him on the street. You could point to him in the house. You could point to him in church. You could point to him at the court. There was a definition.
Right.
Versus now, what's the perception of black masculinity? That changes things now because it can be whatever you kind of want it to be. It can be what you've been exposed to. What's the perception of black masculinity now in the community?
And I'm sorry, y'all. Y'all might fire me off for this one, but I'm gonna say something real controversial.
I'm gonna type it.
But also, and I will say this proudly. One thing we're not going to do on the show is we don't slander or speak against any group of people, regardless of race, religion, culture, sexual orientation, anything like that. So let me put that disclaimer out first. I've seen, okay, I'm gonna give you an example. There's a student, there's a homosexual student in my school. He has the tag that we're talking about. He's been labeled. because of how they say he acts out. When he doesn't get his way, he acts out and he goes into these, histrionic fits or whatever.
Right.
Me as a heterosexual man, no signals get crossed when you come into contact with me, is the only person that he'll talk to. And I heard him say this to another teacher because he said, I want to talk to Mr. Patton because Mr. Patton always calls me son. He doesn't look at me like everybody else.
There's nothing to preface with that. That's human
exactly
interaction. That's something that's missing that he seeks
exactly.
from you, that he respects.
Exactly.
That has nothing to do with anything
you
you just said, Patton. And that shit is pissing me off that you just prefaced it like that.
I'm sorry, but
Because
you know why?
I know
I
why.
had to. You know I had to say it.
Yes,
because that's the kind of, and that's what we get. That's what we get working in where we work. It's always, oh well, I don't want you. No, you don't need to talk to him. Why? Because I don't share the same orientation that he does. It doesn't make a difference to me what his orientation is. If I see you, son, listen, this is what you need to do. This is how you need to handle this situation. It has absolutely nothing to do with who you choose to identify with. At all.
No.
At all.
It's about how you're gonna, what's your perception on this world and how you're going to navigate it.
That's it.
It's
the bottom line. It's the bottom.
You're
But that
missing
stuff
something.
but that gets thrown in there too.
Jump
That
in
gets thrown into the
because
mix.
we was talking about this off air. We was talking about the importance of how you need to talk to somebody more than somebody else need to talk to somebody. It's not about qualifications. It's not about having, I have 14 degrees. It's about,
It's about
relatability and building relationships
right.
is what this is all about.
It's about identifying.
Caught me hitting
Now,
that on
I'm sure, is this young man African American?
Yes, he is.
Right. So it's about identifying, which is what me and Dev was talking about off air. Sometimes it's just about experiencing a connection.
Yep.
Right? So
Yep.
I was sharing a story about, in my school we have like trained people in different departments who do a specific task, right? So we have a psychologist and counselors and all that kind of stuff like that. I'm not a counselor. I don't have those kind of credentials, right? I just been doing this for 19 years. I have kids, and I've been around a lot of kids, right? And I'm also a black man. So when I talk to some of our kids who are in getting those same services, sometimes I get farther in conversations with them than those trained professionals, only because, not because I'm better than them and not because I know more than them, none of that. It's because that kid sees a connection with me that allows them to be vulnerable. And then therefore they feel comfortable enough to say certain things to me that they wouldn't say to somebody who was of European descent because they don't feel like they understand or connect with them.
Right.
And I think that's what it's about with the young man you were talking about, where he says, it ain't about nothing else. I just feel like I can connect with Mr. Patton, and Mr. Patton can connect with me and doesn't see me as anything else but who I am and what I'm going through, and I can get somewhere in the conversation with him, and that's it. Bottom line. So it's about that connection.
And the lack of black males is hurting that connection?
It's definitely hurting that connection.
Absolutely.
Definitely hurting that connection. The lack of black male masculinity present, and also the attack of black male masculinity subconsciously that our community doesn't see. So whether it's the clothes, whether it's the music, whether it's the media, there's an attack on black masculinity that people don't readily see all the time, and there's not enough black males who are standing in the forefront to say, no, young man, this is not how you do it. This is not what you do. This is not how you carry yourself.
So black masculinity isn't just about us being strong.
No.
What is our definition now? It's about being understanding. It's about building relationships. What is our new definition? Us three. What is our definition?
I'll offer we can each offer a piece because there's
masculinity.
Because there's layers.
It can be subjected to anything you want it to be.
Okay, I'm going to go with this one because this is one that bothered me for the longest time.
Dumbass toxic word.
It used to really get under my skin to hear a female say, "Be a man." How can you tell a male to be a man? You've never experienced it. You don't know what it is. It does not come at a certain age. There's no age of onset to becoming a man. There's no biological or genetic definition. If you start growing a mustache, now you're a man. No, that's not it at all. Being a man, anybody can be a male. That's just,
you're born
gender.
You're born
that's genetics.
You have a choice in that.
But being a man is a mindset. Men think a certain way. Men think through problems and situations a certain way. So when you have the mindset of a man, a lot of the things that these young men are doing that land them in trouble in certain situations, that doesn't happen to men because men are not designed or not wired to be emotional. Really designed and wired to be very logical, problem solving, and things like that.
Black men need to cry more. I forgot the doctor.
Yeah, I mean that's yeah.
We'll talk about that later. But I know what he's trying to do and what he's trying to convey to the gentleman that is pushing that.
Yeah, and that's cool. That's cool. But it's also about thinking, which is something that we don't. It's a mindset, and I can't make it any simpler than that from my piece.
Thinking as opposed to having an emotional response.
Yes. Okay. Yes. The movie Think Like a Man, even though it was about relationships and how men think, but men actually do think. We don't respond emotionally to any stimuli. It's okay. I see what the issue is. I'm going to figure out and calculate in whatever period of time it is how to get from A to B so I can solve this problem.
Right.
Wow. That's it.
And that book was on point for the most part. I actually read that book.
Yeah, it was.
Me and my wife had some really good discussions about that book because it was written by a man in the manner in which we think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I definitely I would add on to what you said about being a man. I think also being a man is understanding your position and being accountable for your actions. Right.
Absolutely.
There are men in prison. Right.
Yeah,
there are men
true.
who can sit there and tell you, this is my situation, this is what I did, and now I'm serving my time, right? I've accepted that. And it doesn't make them less of a man because they're in jail, but then there's also boys in jail who thought they were rebel outlaws and I can do whatever I want to do.
Exactly.
That's not being a man,
right?
Being a man is understanding what you need to do and then being accountable for your actions, whatever those actions are. And so a lot of people nowadays, I ain't gonna just say kids, a lot of people nowadays don't understand that, so they do things and then they equate that with being a man or masculinity. And it's like, no. Being a man doesn't always mean running towards something. Sometimes being a man means walking away.
True.
Being a man doesn't always mean getting physical. Sometimes being a man means having a conversation, showing restraint. Right. Being a man is not, having a plethora of women. Sometimes being a man is going home and being right with that one. And so we get these things twisted because we attach masculinity and being a man to some of the wrong things, and that message gets screwed up. And now we're trying to untie that message and straighten it out so that way kids understand what masculinity is as it was clearly defined years ago.
Yeah.
This is hard. I'm gonna close.
So you got the last one, yeah. So we got mindset, we got accountability.
I'm gonna go and just say, like, whatever system we want to say is making it hard for us to still be a black man. And what do I mean by that? The only thing I'm trying to say is when we're in the schools and when we're in the community, it's such a rarity to see that they only see one side that they want to focus on. So for example, they want to focus on us yelling and screaming, and then they glorify and personify, they blow that out of proportion, and that's what they focus on when it comes to, at least my view, of black masculinity.
Right.
So with them focusing on that solely, it negates and makes everything else that y'all just said smaller.
Right.
So with them focusing on that, it's like, it's so hard for us to really implement these things because as soon as they see one part that they don't like, that's the one they're going to focus on. That's the part that's going to continue to keep us fighting.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because there is sometimes where we're going to have to sit down and talk to a person reasonably. There is sometimes where we're going to have to get our young black males' attention.
Yeah.
But we can't always be penalized for us showing emotion, logical emotion. Sure. Every step we make in a school system is always logically, it's approached with a logical mindset behind it. It's not reaction.
Right.
Like I said, we deal with kids all day. So if I'm dealing with the same kid for 5 hours, and I'm doing this, doing that, and then the 6th hour, I'm like, this has to stop. Like, everything has a systematic approach to the mindset of a man, which you just said.
Absolutely.
And I'm not trying to ramble, but what I am saying is it's hard for us to or show what it is to be a full-fledged, masculine black man right now, because as soon as one thing happens that society does not like, they take it and they put a wrench in it.
Sure.
And they cripple us And now we have to defend that. If I'm yelling, oh, I'm a monster, or I'm too emotional, I'm a mean black man.
You're too aggressive.
If a kid says,
that's the one.
You're too aggressive. Everything always comes back to us being too aggressive, and as soon we have to figure out how to squash that. Before we can figure out how to squash that persona, that how we're perceived, based off the media, based off of everything.
And
it's
you
hard,
know,
bro.
that's funny because it's such a.
And I can go in more. I'm just gonna stop.
It is. I know.
It pisses me off.
Yeah, we got it. But it's such a dichotomy to that because if you think about the skill sets that you need in the work world or the skill sets you need in the work world or in the corporate industry or whatever, somebody who's not a go-getter, somebody who's not outgoing, they'll say, oh man, you need to be more aggressive. You need to take the bull by the horns. But when you become aggressive, now you're too aggressive. So it's like, I think
they have
very
things and people don't
absolutely. But what it does is, because we're talking about being an example to a younger generation, it confuses them. So it's like, okay, well, do I need to be aggressive? And like I'll tell my students, listen, you need to attack your studies. You need to attack note-taking in class. You're not doing good in this class? Listen, you need to go at it hard. Well, what you mean? What do I need to do? You need to take notes. You need to talk to a teacher. You need to be deliberate about getting on top of you. You need to be aggressive.
Right.
But that's not violent aggression. That's not anger. That's not, I'm trying to harm somebody. That is, I'm being tenacious in my approach to get the goal that I'm after. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But if you're going to label something, you need to be, like, when we're clarifying, when we're getting rid of some of the top 4 stuff, you need to be real clear and specific about what type of aggression you're talking about, because that's just too broad. So you're demasculating me or whatever kind of words you want to, emasculate me, if you're saying not to be aggressive. Like, what? That's in my nature to be aggressive.
But you also have other things in your nature too.
Absolutely. That's not the only thing. That may be one of the driving alpha testosterone causing.
And society sees us to be aggressive or show strength, and they cripple us with it.
Absolutely.
And they cripple us with it in the school system.
Yep.
They cripple us in the neighborhoods
and
in our community and at home.
Yep.
So, like I said, it's hard to define. Any last words, Lo?
No, I was going to say, like you said, it's that taking one word and giving it multiple meanings, which is funny because that's an American thing.
Yeah.
So if you go to other countries and you use a word like cool, right, and you're trying to explain what does cool mean. Well, cool has several meanings here, depending on who you're talking to, what part of the country you're from, stuff like that.
Cool is the temperature.
Yeah, cool is the temperature. Cool could be like you're all right with something. Right. But other countries, when you look at other countries' language, the words are what they are.
Right.
It's that's why it's kind of hard when they start speaking our language for them to understand it, because they're like, it's too many words that mean too many different things.
Mm-hmm.
Aggression is one of those type of things where you're using it and then you're putting a negative spin on it.
Right.
So having an aggressive tone to your personality or to your demeanor is a manly thing.
Right.
It's one of the many things that make up a fabric of a man.
Right.
It's not the only thing. It's not the main thing. It's just one of the things that make a man a man. Just like being emotional makes a woman a woman. It doesn't mean a man can't be emotional and a woman can't be aggressive.
Right.
But if you put a negative spin on the word aggression and you use it like that, then all of a sudden it makes people apprehensive when they hear it.
And that's what they focus on.
What you were talking about, Dev, talking to the young man, you weren't being aggressive, you're being passionate. You actually care about him.
So much.
And it hurts you that he's displaying the behaviors that he's displaying.
Exactly.
And on the bigger picture, becoming the man that he possibly could become.
And
so you don't want that for him.
They don't see the follow-ups we do.
No.
They see us doing that, boom, they stop. And then that's where it stops for them. They've seen enough. But they don't know that 2 or 3 times we're going to circle back around with that kid. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk to him. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk to him like this. You know what I mean? Because we've got his attention. We know what we're doing. It's not all. That's the part that kills.
It's the building blocks of the relationship.
The lack of the follow-up. They choose not to show, depict, or respect and what it means to be a black male, and us showing our aggression, which is part of any masculine form, but it's lacking because of a lack of masculinity, period, across all norms.
I'll share something with you real quick, 1 minute. I have a student, it just popped into my head, smoking drugs, smoking everything under the sun. I ain't going to say drugs, but everything under the sun. Both parents passed away. Lives with an aunt. has a label. Bright kid can do calculus in like 3 minutes that it takes, like the valedictorian, like a whole day to do.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable mind. Just won't do the right thing. Got to the point I got so frustrated with him. We had an encounter.
I'm getting frustrated with you right now. You just sliding the joint.
I'm sorry. We had to see it.
Don't get aggressive.
I can't be afraid. Yeah, you getting aggressive with me, brother. You touching my arm.
Just
come on, man.
You're passionate.
So we had an encounter in my office, and I became aggressive. Physical aggression. I had to. I didn't punch on him or anything like that. I'm not gonna lose my job. But I got directly in his face. I raised my voice. I grabbed him by his shirt, I pulled him closer to me, and I told him exactly how I was going to go, exactly the lay of the land. And he cried, and everybody saw him crying. Oh, Mr. Pat, you made him cry. But what they didn't see was 15 minutes later, him giving me a hug and telling me, I need help.
Mm-hmm.
But you saw me, and you heard me yelling, so it's, oh my God, what are you doing? And you saw me gripping him up, oh my God, you're about to kill him. But you didn't know that was the only way that I know that I had to reach him. I had to give him a conscious interrupt from where he was and how he was thinking to how he should be and how he should be thinking. And once that happened, I mean, he's still battling. It's still gonna be a long road, but nobody saw, like you talking about, that follow up. So it's both sides to it. Yeah, I use that aggression.
We all got stories like that.
To get to a nurturing point. So that doesn't take away from you being a man.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So like I said, we're gonna keep going with this topic probably. Like we'll revisit it all the time. Like I said, there's so many things that stem from this. There will be a part 2. There will be part 3. There will be a female voice. There will be us bringing in some of the wives, let them speak. Maybe some other educators. Maybe some other leaders in the community for what Black women feel they represent and how they're being mistreated. Mm-hmm. Like I said, everything we're presenting right now is a bit one-sided, but we're open-minded to all forms of this information. We're presenting it from our perspective. We're never going to label or talk about anybody else's views.
Right.
So with that being said, man, this is going to wrap it up. I think we did a good job staying on course. Yeah. We tied in a lot of things, but we also brought it back.
This is a very passionate subject. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I think for all of us as Black men, Tim, you raising Black men, and all of us affecting Black men in our jobs. I think this is a really passionate and important topic that all of us can go on about, because this is like what we do.
This is what we wake up thinking about and exposed to every single day, every hour of the day. This is all I think about, and I know that's all y'all think about too.
Right.
As well as y'all families. Like I said, I was engaged once. I've been in a long relationship, but I've never been married, and I don't have kids. That's why I don't speak on it. But like I said, I think y'all did a good job today. Remember, if y'all need any help with anything, send us emails, send us comments, leave comments. We have questions. We have professionals here. Like I said, we have professional husbands here. 4 kids in, 5 kids in. The ups and downs of that. The what it's like to balance that work life with having a family. The impact we're making as educators. The impact they're making on education. Mentorship. So like I said, it's a lot of degrees sitting right here that I think they could, and experience. Like I said, Lopez doing that 19-year joint like it was nothing, but that's heavy. That might trump a 3-year
absolutely
write-up on
you got to agree for that.
You know what I mean? So with that being said, we're on all platforms. What are they, Patton?
All platforms: iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Podbean,
Instantgrits.
No. I'm sorry.
Instantgrits.podbean.com. That's all I'm on. And Stitcher. And Google Play. We say
Google Play. Check us out.
Good. 5 stars.
Let me add one thing before we close out.
It's your world.
Anybody out there, if you're experiencing a situation with a young man or a young lady, if you're a parent or guardian, and you might even need advice, you can plug that in too. Send that to us as well. We would love to speak on issues that you're going through. If you don't have somebody to advise you, or you're looking for maybe a different perspective, we would love to hear from you and talk it out on the show. That would not only help you, but it also help the other listeners who are following us.
No questions or wrong questions. We have experience basketball, sports, classroom.
Email the Instantgrits podcast at gmail.com.
One more time, I'll cut you off.
No problem. The Instantgrits podcast at gmail.com.
Remember, 5-star review, guys. I appreciate it. We're trying to make this a movement. We're on all platforms, so support this movement so that we can move up. hold yourself truly accountable, because everything starts with you guys. Make moves, and then we're gonna move markets, because we're making moves right now. Make moves, move markets. God bless. Have a good day. We'll see y'all soon.
That's right. One love, family.
All right, y'all. Peace.
Patton, gotta do some push-ups right now. No, peace. Patton, I know you guys
You gonna have to turn the phone, man.
No, go ahead. We'll scoop back. Just knock out 10, just for the accountability.
All right, just for the count.
Let's see. 1,
They can see your back.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yo, he getting good with these. 8. Look at him. Nah, he really doing that. 10. Good. That's all for now. That's all. Nothing else to prove.
All right, man.
But because he did it, I'll do 10 too.
I'm gonna give him 10.
All right, we all gonna do 10.
Can you stop using the microphone?
Listen, man, it wasn't yours. That's my mic.
I'm gonna do 10. You might not be able to see my back because I'm little, but
I'll tilt it.
Let's see the brim. They can see that.
Yeah, you see that brim sticking back out.
5, 6. I'm killing my chain. 7, 8, 9, 10. All right.
Bam.
All right, Lo.
Let me get down and get mine in.
I've never seen Lopez do a push-up.
He got it.
Oh, he got some.
Oh,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
8, 9,
10. Watch your head. Don't get knocked out. All right. So like I said, if y'all want to do 50, if y'all send me 50 push-ups every day,
$100?
I will give you $100. I don't care if it's more than y'all doing it. 100 Yankee Doodles?
Yeah.
100 Yankee Doodles. If it's more y'all doing it, we'll take a drawing and we'll just select it. But don't be scared. There's no fear here. No fear. Stay accountable, guys. Love y'all.